Hello and welcome to our video on the debate surrounding trans women in women's sports. This is a topic that has been discussed extensively in recent years, with opinions varying widely.
That going through male puberty, okay, is a huge advantage to go through.
On one hand, there are those who argue that transgender women should be allowed to participate in women's sports just like any other woman. On the other hand, there are those who believe that this creates an unfair advantage due to the biological differences between men and women.
Well, hallelujah.
In this video, we'll be examining both sides of the argument, showing some real-life cases and trying to determine what could be the best course of action. Of course, give us your opinion in the comments. The debate on whether transgender women should be allowed to participate in women's sports centers around the concept of fairness. On one hand, it's argued that transgender women have the right to participate in sports as their gender identity, and should not be excluded from women's sports just because of their biological sex. Supporters of this view argue that excluding transgender women from women's sports is discriminatory, and that it goes against the principles of inclusivity and equality.
I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for my teammates. That's honestly what the spotlight should have been on, is my teammates.
On the other hand, opponents of transgender women participating in women's sports argue that it creates an unfair advantage. Men and women have different physical characteristics that can affect performance in sports, and some believe that allowing transgender women to compete against cisgender women gives them an advantage due to their male biology. They argue that this could negatively impact the fairness of women's sports, and that it could discourage women from participating if they feel they are competing against unfair competition.
I find it peculiar that we are only seeing this from one side, with trans women taking up space in women's spaces, but we do not hear the same of men having to define what a man is.
To address these concerns, some have suggested that transgender women should only be allowed to participate in women's sports if they have undergone hormone therapy for a certain length of time, as this can reduce the physical advantages conferred by male biology.
If a patient identifies as feminine, they can go on estrogen treatment. Estrogen can be given orally, or with a patch or an injection.
However, others argue that this is still not enough to level the playing field, and that transgender women should not be allowed to participate in women's sports at all. There have been some high-profile cases of transgender athletes competing in women's sports which have further fueled the debate. For example, in 2015, a transgender woman named Fallon Fox was allowed to compete in women's mixed martial arts, which generated a lot of controversy. Some argued that her participation was unfair and dangerous for other female fighters, while others defended her right to compete as a woman.
By knockout, Fallon, Queen of Swords, Fox.
How you feeling right now? I'm feeling excellent. That was sweet, huh? Did you like that? Yeah!
When there was a transgender fighter that was hiding the fact, Fallon Fox, was hiding the fact that they were biologically male and competed twice as a woman, beating the fuck out of these women. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, you can't, and trying to say that it was just a medical procedure.
Supporters argue that transgender women should have the right to participate in women's sports just like any other woman, while opponents believe it creates an unfair advantage due to the biological differences. Some suggest that hormone therapy could level the playing field, while others argue that it's not enough. As we move forward, it's important to consider the best way to ensure fairness and equality for all athletes in the sports world, regardless of their gender identity or biological sex. It's important to have open and honest discussions about this issue, as it has the potential to impact the future of women's sports.
Women have absolutely zero chance of winning.
A woman is winning.
One concern that has been raised is the potential impact on the athletic achievements of cisgender women. If transgender women are allowed to compete in women's sports without any restrictions, it could lead to them dominating certain events, or even breaking records that have been held by cisgender women for years. This could have a negative impact on the motivation of cisgender female athletes and could discourage them from pursuing their athletic dreams. On the other hand, excluding transgender women from women's sports could be seen as discriminatory and could prevent them from fully participating in the sports they love. This could have a negative impact on their mental and physical health, as well as their overall sense of inclusion in society.
And then really try and understand this argument that's being put at trans women, that they're trying to ruin female sport. No one wants that. Trans women just want to go out and live a life and play sport like anyone.
It's important to note that there are currently no clear guidelines or regulations when it comes to transgender women participating in women's sports. Each sporting organization has its own rules, which can lead to inconsistency and confusion. Some have suggested the need for a unified set of guidelines that can be applied across all sports and organizations to ensure fairness and consistency. Ultimately, the debate on trans women in women's sports is one that will continue to evolve as society's understanding of gender identity and inclusivity changes. It's important to listen to the perspectives of all stakeholders and to work towards finding a solution that is fair and inclusive for everyone. In conclusion, the debate on whether transgender women should be allowed to compete in women's sports is a complex and continuous issue. While there are valid arguments on both sides, it's important to prioritize fairness and equality for all athletes. The sports world must work towards creating guidelines that are inclusive of transgender athletes while also ensuring that cisgender female athletes are not disadvantaged. Only by working together can we create a sports world that is fair and inclusive for everyone, regardless of their gender identity or biological sex. If you want to watch more amazing sports moments, click on the right.